Bad trim wastes your air, tires you out, and wrecks your dives, often without you realizing it. If you've ever felt like you're swimming uphill or that it's difficult to stay horizontal, this is why. I see this all the time, even with experienced divers, and fixing it doesn't require more strength or more dives, just a smarter setup. Today, I'll show you exactly how to dial in your trim and balance so you can dive smoother, longer, and with total control. Let's get into it. Some divers seem to move through the water with barely any effort, while others look like they're fighting gravity in slow motion. The difference comes down to trim. Trim is your body's orientation in the water, specifically how well you can stay horizontal and balanced as you move. You've seen those divers hovering like horizontal astronauts, effortless, controlled. That's not luck, it's trim, and it takes practice. It's not about looking streamlined for photos, although hey, bonus points if you nail the hover and look good doing it. This position is essential for conserving energy, effortlessly holding depth and position, reducing drag, and keeping yourself safe. Even a 10 or 15 degree tilt can increase your drag by a surprising amount. More surface area is exposed to the water, which forces your legs and lungs to work harder just to move forward. Think about a parachute, but it's working against you. Being in trim is also the position that skydivers use when falling from the sky to slow their descent, so it keeps you stable. This effectively adds brakes on your depth in the vertical column, allowing you to maintain that depth more easily and steadily. There's also an environmental factor. Divers with poor trim often find themselves scraping the bottom, stirring up silt, or brushing against coral, even if they don't mean to. In wrecks, poor trim can scrape sharp metal or catch hoses on jagged surfaces. It can lead to silt outs, creating a real emergency situation. In macro-rich environments, even a fin twitch can crush tiny creatures or cloud the view for other divers. Fin kicks in poor trim can kick up clouds of debris that can damage sensitive marine life and ruin visibility for everyone. Good trim keeps you off the bottom and out of harm's way, both for you and the environment. It also enables you to fin a lot more stably and horizontally. It's about balance and control, with stable buoyancy and minimal movement. Ideally, you're hovering in a horizontal line, legs stretched behind you, either in hover or in a finning position, arms relaxed out in front of you, head forward, and your body steady. Okay trim might keep you mostly horizontal, but it still requires frequent finning or micro adjustments. Great trim feels almost effortless. When you hover still, you can hold your buoyancy without thinking about it. When your balance is off, you end up working harder for every kick, constantly correcting small imbalances. Achieving good trim comes down to skill, body position, and weight distribution, which we'll get into shortly. Here are some quick examples of things that can put you out of trim. If a majority of your weight is sitting too low, it might cause your legs to sink. If the majority is stacked too high, like on your torso, the opposite can start pushing your head down uncomfortably. Weight positioning can have a huge effect on your diving posture. Think of your body as a seesaw, and finding the center of balance is the key to getting the right posture. Raising or lowering your tank shifts the center of gravity and can have a big impact. These adjustments let you fine-tune your position so you're not constantly correcting with your fins or your arms. And if that's you, that's okay. You'll grow out of it and implement these tips so that your arms can just stay in a relaxed position and not moving. To see the difference, compare two divers. One with proper trim and balance can hover with minimal effort, just floating in place, relaxed. The other, with weights too low and legs sinking, needs to fin constantly just to hold position. Once you understand the basics, horizontal position, stable buoyancy, and balanced weights, you're already on your way to more efficient dives. But knowing what good trim looks like isn't always enough. Most divers run into specific recurring mistakes that keep them off balance, often without realizing the cause. The next step is to break down these common problems, figure out what's throwing you off, and learn how small adjustments like moving a weight or shifting your tank can make a huge difference. But before we dive into fixing your trim, you need to be neutrally buoyant. Neutral buoyancy means that when you stop moving and hold a normal breath, you neither sink or rise. I go into proper weighting and how to achieve a balanced rig in much more detail in another video, which I'll link above. It's a great primer to watch alongside this one or after you finish watching this one. For now, we'll assume you're properly weighted and we'll focus on achieving perfect neutral trim, which is more than just floating flat. Next, before we start looking into the tools to get your trim where it should be, let's cover some common terminology. This will help you talk with your dive buddies and better understanding what's actually going on when something feels a little off. If your feet drop or your upper body is higher than your legs, this is commonly called positive trim, or more fondly called seahorsing. It's one of the most common imbalances. The opposite, when you're head heavy and your legs float up, is negative trim. You feel like you're face planting or about to flip forward. It's very uncomfortable, trust me. And then there is left or right balance issues. They don't have fancy names, but they absolutely exist. If, for example, you overloaded your D-ring on your right side and put all your stuff like your primary light, your backup light, and your camera all on one, then you might find you're tipping a little sideways. If you're imbalanced in any way, you might find it hard to hover and stay still. You'll catch yourself using small fin or hand movements called sculling just to keep position. For example, if you're imbalanced left or right, that subtle sculling can even cause you to slowly spin. And here's where it gets tricky. If you're watching someone else, it's hard to diagnose the real cause of their trim issues. A diver who looks like they're seahorsing might actually be head heavy or bottom heavy, but they're constantly adjusting to compensate. That movement hides the true imbalance. Just because someone's seahorsing, you can't automatically assume they're head heavy or bottom heavy. So here's how we'll properly debug it. Let's run a proper test to debug your trim. The first quick check is a mid-dive spot test. And this one's simple that you can do anytime. Tuck your chin to your chest and look backward under your body. If you see your knees, hips, or fins dropping into view, your trim probably needs a little work. You should ideally see everything fairly flat. Seeing only the water you're leaving behind? Doing great. But that's just a really rough check. Now, let's learn a more proper check that will help you out. Go somewhere shallow, about 3 meters or 10 feet. Get into a neutral buoyancy and stop moving. Put yourself into the flat position and just relax and hold your buoyancy. You want to be horizontal and hold that position for as long as you can, ideally a few minutes, your whole safety stop if you can. You'll probably feel one side start to sink or float. Take note of which direction your body starts to tilt or drift. Don't correct it yet, just observe. That's your imbalance. Fight the urge to scull with your hands and your feet. Give yourself time to figure out what's breaking your trim. Develop some ideas. Maybe my camera is in the wrong spot. That awareness is half the battle. And here's a pro tip. Many divers, experienced or not, don't realize their trim is off until they see themselves on video. Ask your buddy to grab a clip of you hovering from the side or from below. That video will reveal everything. It's one of the fastest ways to learn where you're out of balance. Better still, run this test anytime you change your gear. Different fins different tanks, a new BCD, all of it can affect your balance. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes to find and debug your trim and get to good trim faster after adjusting your gear. Once you achieve this neutral, balanced state, staying there gets easier and easier. Recognizing what good trim feels and looks like gives you a clear target. You'll start to know when something's off. So now let's talk about the most common trim failures and what they're secretly telling you about your gear setup. Debugging your trim starts with spotting the symptoms. If your knees drop or your feet sink, that could mean your weight is too low on your body, but is also a symptom of poor posture, which I'll get to a little bit more in just a second. Remember the seesaw analogy. You can experiment with shifting your weight belt higher toward your ribs, or move some of the lead into your BCD's back or trim pockets. If you're using a BCD with 2-cylinder cam bands, you've got options as well. You can position your weights on the top or bottom with trim pockets as needed and experiment with that. If your legs are floating up behind you, move your weight belt closer to your hips or try using side pockets. Personally, I avoid ankle weights, but some divers use heavier fins or leg mounted weights. Just make sure anything in your pocket is tied in securely. If you pull something else out, you don't want to lose it, especially a weight mid-dive. If you're head up and fighting to stay flat, check your tank height. Raising your tank valve closer to your neck shifts the center of gravity and can counteract a sinking leg. If you're falling left or right, look at the lateral distribution. Where are your accessories placed? That's often the culprit. Where's your light clipped? Even a primary torch, if it's heavy or extended outward, can tilt your balance. For me, I can feel it if I extend my arm too far out with my torch. It pulls me off balance. But if I bring it in, it will start feeling a lot better. And another thing I can do is take my backup light, which probably isn't as heavy as my primary, but I can put that somewhere on my right side to help compensate. And I can move my posture around to compensate for this thing. Another common culprit is tank roll. If you're diving single tank on a backplane wing, the tank might start leaning subtly to one side. You can fix that with a single tank adapter or a stiffer spine plate that helps keep the tank centered, or using a second cam band. If you feel that lean mid-dive, try reaching back and realigning your tank manually. You might have to just reach back there and wiggle it around until it starts feeling a little bit more right. And one nice perk of side mount or doubles is that you'll notice this problem instantly disappears. Those systems balance themselves out naturally. The more symmetrical your setup, the less compensation you'll need underwater. Each of these small adjustments targets a specific imbalance, and often just 1 or 2 tweaks make a huge difference. Here's a great exercise to try. Take a small weight or a manageable rock on your dive. Let's call this a weight displacement drill. Do your trim test. Remember, it's where you're hovering and stable and trying to just hold that position for some time, just relaxing and seeing where you fall. But instead, this time, you're gonna start moving this weight or rock around your body. Try it near your waist, your shoulders, your hips, and your thighs. Watch how your body reacts. See if one spot helps you hover better than others, and maybe even counterbalances an issue you're currently having. And you can also play with your posture. When you move the rock or weight above you, what kind of posture do you need to stop from getting heavy, to stop from rolling forward? You'll learn fast how much your body reacts to even tiny shifts in weight. This drill is eye-opening and really fun once you get the hang of it. Sinking legs, move weight up by extending your arms a bit more. Move equipment as a second option. Floating legs, move weight down. You can also mess with your posture by extending your legs a bit more. Move equipment again as a second option. If you're tipping left or right, shift side to side until you're balanced. Simple but powerful. And by using that weight or rock, you might find a optimal place that balances you out, that you can put a new weight on your body that counterbalances that shift. And once you feel it click underwater, you won't forget it. Now, don't forget your tank position. Raise or lower it in small increments to find that sweet spot. If you're always fighting to stay level, slow adjustments to tank height can solve the problem quickly. Let's also talk about overweighting. Adding too much lead means you have to overinflate your BCD or dry suit. That creates a large unstable air bubble that shifts as you move. Not only does it increase drag, but it makes fine-tuning your balance much harder. The goal is to use the least amount of lead possible that still keeps you safely neutral at the end of your dive. Sometimes the solution isn't to add more weight, it's to move the weight you already have. For example, you can split it between your belt, your cam beds, your trim pockets, or other strategic spots. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about posture. This plays a surprisingly big role in your trim. You'll figure that out if you start messing around with the weight or rock exercise. You'll be moving your posture to keep that neutral trim. But as a rule of thumb, you want to aim for a relaxed horizontal position. Arms up and facing forward. Head up and facing forward. Back slightly arched. Knees bent. And that butt flexed. Imagine holding a coin between those cheeks and fins slightly upward but spread out. No yoga poses are required. It should feel natural. And here's a pro tip to practice horizontal trim. You can just simply get a wetsuit on and practice this at the surface of the water where you're positively buoyant, and you can just relax on the surface and try to lay flat. You'll find when you're laying flat and trying to spread your body across the surface of water, you'll naturally kind of go into a neutral trim position. Remember, you're not sculling or trying to kick. You'll just naturally be resting and keeping your head out of the water. This is usually a good baseline posture for you to run with. And if the imbalance is small enough, posture alone can sometimes correct it. Experienced divers often adjust instinctively this way. I remember one time my wife and I were out diving and we found 15 pounds of lead. We could use a little bit more lead, but we got to get that back to our car. So we presented some interesting challenge with our ability to hold trim and displace that weight in our gear and get back to our car safely. I also like to think we're picking up some litter at a dive site, but we did. We put that in our pockets and we were able to get it back safely out of the water. It definitely presented a very interesting trim and balance problem. I like to think that it's because of our weight displacement drills that we've done that made it a little bit easier. It builds that muscle memory, so even without thinking, your body starts to hold perfect trim and compensate when things are off. Over time, you'll develop a sixth sense for balance through posture and micro positioning. And that's when diving really starts to feel magical. You'll stop being the human seesaw and start gliding like a sea turtle. And a quick note on gear. Back inflate and hybrid BCDs tend to trim out better than jacket style ones, since they distribute lift a little bit more evenly. Not that jackets can't have great trim, it's just a little bit harder. So don't underestimate how much your gear matters. Heavy torches, cameras, large knives, different backplate materials, all these small details can tip your balance. Even raising your tank strap just an inch higher can change the entire feeling of your dive. The key is to experiment, adjust, test, and repeat. Once you've made a few changes, go back and run the hover test again. Film yourself, take notes, track what worked. It might take a good 5 to 10 dives to dial in your trim perfectly. That's totally normal. Trim is a skill. You build it over time. Each dive gives you feedback, sometimes in the form of a gentle roll, sometimes in the form of a GoPro video that makes you cringe. But by consistently diagnosing, adjusting, and practicing, you get closer to that perfect motionless hover. The result? More control, less wasted energy, and a safer, more enjoyable dive every time. Good trim isn't just a technical detail, It's the foundation of efficient and safe diving. It makes everything else easier. Your finning becomes more effective, your skills become smoother, and your air consumption improves without even trying. With proper alignment and balanced weight, you'll move through the water with less effort, conserve gas, and avoid damaging the reef. Next time you're underwater, try that hover challenge or shift a small weight to test your balance. See how those tests affect your control and help you debug your trim. If you found these debugging tips useful, be sure to hit that subscribe for more clear and practical dive skills. Mastering trim will slash your air use and keep you off the reef, but expect the road to mastery to be long. It's a foundation, and doing skills on top of it and being task loaded will challenge the best of divers. If you're struggling, be sure to reach out to some local instructors in your neighborhood. My instructor friend Wouter, who helped me with this video, is full of knowledge and tips, and if you're in his neck of the woods, be sure to look him up. His website is in the description below. Otherwise, I do encourage you to visit your local dive shop. Getting some time with a great instructor can significantly improve your progress. But on top of that, you won't be able to master trim until you first nailed your buoyancy. I've got 2 videos queued up for you next to improve your buoyancy control. Click here or here to watch those now. The more you know, the more you'll love and protect the ocean. Until next time.